to this month's Grief Chatter, the next chapter. My name's Kim Smith, and this is
Paige, Rahn.
And we're talking about
being stuck in our grief or feeling like we're stuck, and what do we do?
And again, grief does not just have to be about the death of a loved one, even though we work in a profession that is what we primarily deal with. But this applies to every type of grief experience.
Yes.
Because we can have people who are stuck in the fact that they're no longer able to have a job that they trained for, whatever circumstances keeps them from being able to do that, and they can spend the rest of their life on the I wish it had been different instead of living in the where am I now and what am I going to do. So this applies to all sorts of loss, but obviously death loss will be primary. So Paige, what do we do when we feel stuck?
So I don't know if you know this, but I like to write. I have several different journals with different topics. I have one for the day I found out I was pregnant, and I have kept that one, throughout the years. But the one I feel like I've been visiting a lot is the journal I write to my loved ones who are not here, who have passed. So many things, as you know, have been going on for quite a while, but in this particularly the last few months. So my precious Graham was my person, and she's now been gone longer than I had her, but she had such an impact. So there are moments a lot lately when I'm struggling, I'll refer back to some things, but then I'll write, my gosh, I wish you were here, like you would know what to do, or you would be sitting next to us in an OR waiting room, like, all the things. But I like writing it because how many times do we fear, or when we have a loss, what if I forget? What if I forget? And it's, for me, I remember, and I was in college, I was young, but studying her hands, and in her final days, like lotioning her hands and her feet, and just, I wanted that imprint in my head because that hand held mine so many times. Or when I slept at her house and I'd wake up, she had kissed like my forehead and just kind of rubbed it. So it's those things. And I'll write to her now, oh, Graham, please help me, because I have 2 kids, you had 4, and how did you do it? And for her. But there's other little blurbs to friends I've lost along the way. It's coming up on 10 years, and she was just a love. And my babies were babies, and she would give me like hints and things to do. And coming up on her next anniversary, I'm like, oh, you were right. So that's one. But then I have another journal that's things about me, and like whatever obstacles or thoughts I've written. And it's nice to reflect back on those, in those moments when I felt that I was literally in cement and not going to be able to climb out. So it's nice to also see that growth, and I didn't get stuck forever. Like somehow I climbed out, but by the hardest. And then there's the third, the letters to my children. So they don't know about that one, and they won't for a long time. Yes, it's
one of them is just on the other side of that wall, but I don't think he's listening.
No. And just along the years, writing just little notes to them of monumental things, or how they smelled when I rocked them. And because it's like, they won't remember those things, and I'm not going to be here forever, but I want them to know.
So you just got some lagniappe. That really didn't have to do with being stuck, but that's just like a beautiful ritual.
You're right. Sometimes I go off on tangents.
That Paige and her husband both have contributed to some things that their kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, and on and on and on will have, that will give them insights into this generation.
Yes. Yeah. But the moments we feel stuck in the cement, we have to realize, okay, I'm not sinking. I may feel like I'm stagnant, but somehow I'm not going to pull that leg out and get it to firmer grounds.
Yeah. There's quite a few stories in my career of people who have been stuck in their grief. But the third one that came to my little Rolodex as I was sitting here thinking about, it's somebody that I've never talked about on this particular platform. So I was a seminary student and doing an internship, and I had this lady that came in, and her loved one had died, I want to say it was like 13 years earlier. It was definitely right in that window. And lovely lady. She knew that she was stuck. Now, not everybody does, but somebody knows that they're stuck. It may be the person that realizes, I'm not moving. And it may be just everybody around them, and it's just a known fact, but the person themselves really doesn't acknowledge it. In her case, it was her. She knew. And it was, there are some times that people can get unstuck pretty quickly, such as the phototherapy that I've mentioned before, where I'll just say, okay, I need you to pull out the family albums, and I'll be at the house in 10 minutes. And that's happened a couple of different times. And that worked incredibly well, because that helped the pump, and that helped with me in my own grief, where I wasn't able to cry, and I knew that I needed to. And so here we go. Put the picture video up, and I knew I was good to go on that. But with this particular lady, it wasn't like that. It was a slow process. We did make it 13 years by moving quickly. And she had a lot of things going on in her life. So I allowed her to talk about whatever was most pressing at the time. She talked some about her loved one, but it was a lot about other things that were happening in her life at that time. And it took a few months, if not a full year. And finally, I had her do a couple of different art activities. Now, this is an adult, but just because we're an adult does not mean that we cannot do art.
Correct.
Sometimes that kind of medium versus talking can be very, very helpful. And she did a couple of different projects. And the first one, I gave her clay, and I gave her down here one of those plastic circular things where you put the crawfish. I don't know what we call it. You can get them at Walmart. Crawfish tray. Okay, that's what I gave her, and I gave her clay, and I wanted her to show me what her life looked like right now. And she created this scene, and she had the sun off in one corner, and she had her down here, and there was this big line of clouds. And when she saw it, it was an aha moment for her. And she's like, that truly is my life. The sun is there, but I've allowed these clouds to remain above me and have kept me from being able to experience. And that's when we finally started having a breakthrough. So the next project was something that we had done with some younger people, but in her case, I wanted her to create, in this day and time, we'd probably do it via computer, but at that point, it was taking pictures. I wanted her to create a collage of her loved one. And she created the collage, but there was one thing that she did not want to put on said collage. And I had the same thing with a middle school young lady. That was her struggle. There was one thing that truly should be on the collage because it was so much a part of their loved one's life, but it was something they didn't like. And they did not want to admit that was, if you grieved the whole person, you had to acknowledge this particular aspect of their life. And that was what happened. When she looked at it and she knew, I have got to acknowledge this. This has to be a part of this collage. She cried for an hour, like wept in front of me, right there on the desk, for an hour, and it was the breakthrough, and she moved forward and saw sunshine again. So there's just a lot of ways,
Yes.
and everybody's different. Some of us, we can figure out for ourselves how to get unstuck. We just don't want to face whatever it might be. Or it may take an outside person, whether it's a therapist, whether it's watching something that really is emotive and helps you to kind of open up those floodgates so that healing can occur.
Yes.
But like, it can happen. You do
will.
not have to remain stuck. Does that mean that you're ever going to get to a point where you don't have grief being emotions and thoughts regarding your loss? No. But you need to kind of turn on the water spigot. And I tell people, when you turn that on, you can't just go, oh, I only want, quote, good emotions. Because what I've seen is people say, I'm going to turn off my emotions, whether they verbalize it or not. I'm going to turn off my emotions. And what they do, they're thinking, I'm turning off sadness. I'm turning off
How's that working out?
Yeah. What they end up doing is they end up turning off all of the emotions. So they end up this just facade where there's really nothing, no emotion on their faces, whether it comes to cute little babies or whatever it may be. It's just not the same. And until they open that up and allow the full expression, then they will be stuck.
And it's the right now versus the not yet. Right now, I feel stuck, and I'm working on it. It just hasn't happened yet.
Okay. And for some people, they're not even wanting to be unstuck, because some people feel as though that's a tribute to their loved one. If I, quote, move on, if I laugh, if I love, then this somehow or another, I didn't love this person as much. That is not correct.
We're here to teach and share that. So if you need that reminder, reach out to us.
Absolutely. So thank you for tuning in, and you don't have to live stuck. You don't have to live on the other side of the sunshine. Even on this gloomy day here in New Orleans, Louisiana, you don't have to live in the rainy days. You can have some glimpses of the sunshine. Just make those choices.
Be kind to you.